everybody, and welcome to another episode of Consciousness Rising Zimbabwe and Beyond. I am your host, Tania Norris, and this is the place where you're going to come and meet all of our alternative and interesting and gifted people. Today, I have a very special guest that we've been very excited about, and his name is John Wild. And John has a background in life science. He's an agronomist, and he also has his own range of herbal health products. And he's also started an organization called ZANHP, and he's going to tell us about that. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Tania. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. We're very excited to have you today. So John, just getting straight into it, can you tell us, first of all, what ZANHP is? And secondly, what inspired you? What were the events that led to you forming that association?
Okay. Well, ZANHP is it's an association under the TMPC. And there was a group of us who started it. It stands for the Zimbabwe Association of Natural Healing Practitioners. And it was a group of us, namely Katie Rose from African Apothecary, Dr. Narai Pweni, Dr. George Danda, and then we've since got in Treasurer and Secretary, Denise and Julie. And it started as us, just the group of us getting together and talking about, obviously all being, I was looking into starting up herbal supplements and products, and everyone else was practitioners. Katie Rose obviously has her own products as well, and it was just like-minded people getting together and chatting about alternative therapies. And then one day we met up with someone from the TMPC, the Traditional Medical Practitioners Association. And they suggested that we start an association to get more of a voice, basically. So it was 2017, we officially registered ZANHP with TMPC, and sort of slowly more behind the scenes working. What we've actually got now is after meetings with the Ministry of Health and the Minister himself, he's agreed to restart or relook at a natural therapist council, and it's all been approved. We're just waiting for the official go ahead. So the Natural Therapist Council will fall directly under the Health Professions Act, which will give natural therapists a voice directly to the Ministry of Health and representation.
Mm-hmm.
It is obviously still in the process, so it's not operational yet, but we're hoping that will happen in the very near future.
John, would that give us or doctors the ability to work together with us if we sort of recognized on that level?
Yes, well, I think as once it's recognized by the Ministry of Health, I think there's quite a few sort of the GPs and that are looking more at the natural alternatives, and yeah, so definitely I think there does need to be a lot more working together with
mm-hmm.
traditional doctors, so to speak.
Yeah,
and I think that's definitely will become more and more common as it gains recognition. And I mean, you can over the last 10-15 years globally, the popularity of the alternative therapies has definitely grown a lot.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be less polarity and more working together.
Well, we can only cross our fingers for that one. You know, let's hope that that's what happens.
Yeah.
So I think it's also important to mention that we used to have the ACHP here, the Alternative and Complementary Health Practitioners,
Yes.
which, to my knowledge, I think that that's still going. Whether that was a registered body, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not too sure of where they were registered, and but there have been other associations, and there's I mean, just under TNPC, there's lots of associations.
Okay.
So yeah, we by no means the only one.
So, but historically, somebody told me, I don't know who told me this, but with the HDHP practitioners at one point in time, quite a while ago, some of those practitioners were being targeted by doctors.
Oh, right. Okay, I see. Yeah, I think that the sort of mentality has changed a bit. I'm hoping that was a long time ago.
It was, I think.
Yeah.
But John, you also told me a very interesting story about our minister who, did you say he went to China and saw this whole hospital that he wanted to set up? Can you tell us about that story?
No, no, it was a workshop I went to. The TNPC was holding a workshop, and there were some Chinese delegates there. They were actually doctors, and we were chatting to them, and they were saying how in China how they've got these clinics or hospitals, and it operates. So you'll go in there with an ailment, and they'll decide: do you need to see an acupuncturist, a herbalist, or do you need to go and see the chemotherapy department, whatever, depending on the condition and the stage of the diagnosis, or when you diagnose. So you've got the full range from medical doctors and surgeons, radiologists, working with herbalists, acupuncturists, Reiki masters. So it was really, I was very surprised at the model, and they've got thousands of these clinics all over China. And it was very encouraging to hear that there's places out there in the world, and I think it's something we should look at. And the workshop I was at was the Ministry of Health. Their goals for the next sort of term, which I think starts in 2021, is to incorporate more of the natural or alternative medicine into their sort of their operating scope of operation, which is also very encouraging for us in Zimbabwe.
Well, yeah, I think so.
We have to see the results, and I think that's why when the Natural Therapist Council is running, it's important that the practitioners support by registering, and the more members the Natural Therapist Council gets, the more seriously they'll be taken. The council will be taken.
And it's also a way to build up momentum, isn't it? You know, like
exactly,
anything that starts, you've got to build up that momentum in an organization.
Yeah, and it's quite a difficult one, and that was one of the goals of ZANHP was, aside from the Natural Therapist Council, was to have a database. So when, as a practitioner, when you join ZANHP, we try and vet your qualifications to make sure it's not someone who's done a 30-minute YouTube course and then calls themselves a doctor. So there is going to be a vetting process, and there is with ZANHP. But with ZANHP, you can join as a supporting member, so you don't have to be a practitioner. If you're just interested in alternative medicine and you just want to follow what's going on, and we're going to try and do workshops, at least 4 workshops a year.
Okay.
We just get like you doing, getting guest talkers to come and talk on interesting topics,
Okay.
topical subjects.
Well, that's
Yeah,
very
so
exciting, and let's just hope that this all can come about, maybe, you know, even in the next year.
yes, exactly. But yeah, but obviously there's complications at the moment, but yeah, it's still the goal. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so now just changing gears a little bit. Can you tell us about Wild Health?
Okay, Wild Health. Like you said, I was actually in agriculture, and I started in research and development. So I was doing fertilizer, chemical trials, and then obviously things changed in the agricultural sector here in the sort of early to mid 2000s. So I left agriculture. I always had a passion for growing stuff. I like my veggie garden, and I started growing organic veggies along with lots of other things. And I've always been interested in the medicinal properties of plants, and eventually I started importing a family friend of ours in Cape Town, Ray White. She made that progesterone cream.
Right.
And she was big into natural medicine. So she's always been in my life harping on about natural medicines. And yeah, so in about 2015, I just decided to start growing some of the herbs and importing some of the herbs and making capsules on a small scale. And it's just sort of, I was taking it seriously, but it was started very small. I've got about an acre at the bottom of the garden where I was doing all my trials and growing my stuff, and it's now getting real, so to speak. I'm in the process of talking to MCAS and getting products registered with MCAS, the Medical Control Authority here. I've got commercial trials growing some of the herbs out in the country with friends on their farms. Yeah, so it's still relatively small, but when I look back to 2015, it's been quite a journey. That the snowball has gathered the momentum, like you were talking about.
But John, who do we have here in Zimbabwe that actually does produce natural supplements? Do we just import these things?
A lot of them are important. There's another company, Herbal Solutions, that do a lot. They as far as I'm aware, they're all herbal, but they also have a sort of a growing program. Some of them are grown locally, but there's things like reishi mushrooms and all that, which you don't want to wild harvest things like mushrooms. That there's too much risk involved. You get the wrong one. And there are also herbs that we just won't be able to grow here. So there is always going to be an element of importation. But what's also I think going to come to the fore a lot more is our indigenous medicinal plants. We've got a wealth of knowledge. I've been talking to a professor here, Professor Gumbiza, and he's had over 40 years experience in with the indigenous medicinal herbs, and that I think is very exciting. Also very concerning. I was talking to a lady last year. She was doing a thesis on the commercialization of resurrection bush. And while it's very exciting for me that there's these people looking at commercializing these, I think before we start doing that, we've got to start looking at the sustainability. We don't want a situation where something gets a name overseas and it's marketed and we go and plunder a resource unsustainably. So there's quite a lot to consider with the wild harvesting, which is why I'm looking at with my agricultural background, is trying to grow some of these herbs on a commercial level, as opposed to plundering the natural resources.
Because I heard that exactly. Is it the moringa plant? Or the
Yes,
moringa tree? That's like the whole world's just got onto moringa now, and all of these trees and forests, and you know, because it's become so commercialized.
Well, the nice thing about moringa, which has got global recognition as a superfood, is that it's a relatively quick growing tree. And that's, I'm not too, there's quite a few people and fairly big operations. There's a huge one in Zambia growing them commercially, so it's not affecting the wild crop. And I think things like resurrection bush is a very slow growing crop, so you don't
I haven't heard about a resurrection bush. What are the properties of that? Is it also a superfood?
No, it's got very potent antioxidants. It's very good for respiratory disorders, asthma. Traditionally, they actually burn it, and you inhale the smoke. So, and traditionally used for asthma, bronchitis.
Okay.
And also teas. I haven't had experience with it, but the literature says it's also very good for urinary tract infections, which is quite a common problem.
But I think that's such important information, you know, because while our medical field or medical industry is important, you know, if you've got a brain tumor or, you know, whatever, it's a very valuable thing. But I do feel that people give far too much of their power away to doctors. You know, there's no personal responsibility of, well, what can I do for myself? No, it's go to the doctor, get the thyroid medication, get the blood pressure medication. You know, with no actual thought and responsibility for yourself. If the doctor says this is what it is, well, then that's what it is.
Well, it's very interesting. What spurred me to look into resurrection bush was actually one of the neurosurgeons here. A friend of mine had a glioblastoma, brain tumor, and as soon as they had diagnosed, before he was booked in to do the radiation and chemo, I just said, well, here's some stuff if you want to try it, and it was all reishi and he told the neurosurgeon, and she said, well, can he come to the next meeting? So I went in and met her at one of the family meetings. And she said, you should actually look at resurrection bush. She was the one that said it's got very potent antioxidants, which is very encouraging that a neurosurgeon, she's one of the top neurosurgeons in the world.
Oh, really?
And she's, it was really great to hear her saying, look, your life's going to change. It's time to get spiritual, be it religion, spirituality, whatever. Just get your house in order. And it was very encouraging to hear a neurosurgeon who 15 years ago would have had none of that. You were just a number on her waiting list, to take the time to say those kind of things.
So we also have another neurosurgeon here, the professor of neurosurgery here at our university, Kazadi Kalungu. I'm sure you know him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I've never met him, but I know a lot of him. He's been doing a lot of work on the cannabis.
He's been doing work on cannabis, but Kazadi's always also been into alternative therapies. You know, we've done workshops together with EFT. I know that he had this light machine. You know, he had fantastic results with. I mean, that's very alternative. So he's a very inspiring person. Hopefully, we get to have him on the show as well sometime soon.
Those are the kind of people who've had the formal training but are now exploring the alternative, and that's those are the people that learn the most. It's like me going from doing chemical trials, and I was actually involved not in the trial work, but in the registration of Roundup in Zimbabwe.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
And to go from that to growing organic vegetables, and you've got to you learn more by going the polar opposites. So
Exactly.
you've got a nice balance of information.
Mm.
And it's easier to change your mindset once you've had to do it once.
That's true, but I mean, if you're involved with the registration of Roundup, then maybe you'll have enough knowledge to get us out of these programs. You know?
Yeah, we're looking at it's quite an interesting one, because to get it registered here, to get any agricultural chemical registered here, there's a process. You've got to do 3 years trials, and you've got to prove that. But you've got to prove that they work against. Obviously, you've got to control them against other chemicals. But the flaw in the system is that the toxicological data, you don't do it yourself. You rely on the principal company. So in that case, it would have been Monsanto. And they supplied all the data, and it was by professors and doctors, and it all said, literally, it said that if you sprayed it like on the dam, because at the time they were trying to get rid of the hyacinth at Lake Chivera, within 48 hours, that the glyphosate compound was broken down into completely organic components. And these were documents written by professors, doctors, and little old research and developer in Zimbabwe. You believe a doctor because it's written by a professor or a doctor.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And you know what, John? There's also quite a big agenda here. You know that Agenda 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is really pushing its way into this country. So I think it's something that we really need to look at, you know, and see what we can do to have a say in which programs come into this country. You know, there's a whole history about Monsanto and this United Nations Agenda 20, and how devastating it is. It's devastating to countries. But it's sold to you as this wonderful, going to save the world kind of program.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so John, now tell me something else. What other projects do you have on the go? What are you busy doing at the moment? What can we look forward to?
Well, at the moment, it's pretty tied up between getting the wild health side all official and registered. We've just started making hand sanitizer, but I think that's another story. So it's, my main focus at the moment is obviously getting products registered with MKs, in which case I'll be able to supply to supermarkets, pharmacies, and I want to focus more on the growing side, and getting obviously the first things first is markets, and then expanding the growing side, which could be, and the nice thing about most of the herbs is you don't need thousands and thousands of hectares of land. It can be done on relatively small areas of land. So it would lend itself well to sort of outgrow programs and that kind of thing.
How long will it take for you to get some feedback or results from your trials, your growing trials?
That's the other thing with agriculture. A season is basically a year. But look, I think I've done enough small trial work. What I'm doing now are essentially commercial trials. So not long at all. I think it'll be more dependent on getting the markets for the volumes that we want to produce.
Okay.
And I think that's I'm hoping will all happen in the next year.
Well, we're also going to hope that all happens in the next year. But in the
That's gonna be a
meantime,
big
if people wanted to get your products and some of your supplements,
yes,
they are available. I mean, I have been taking them. I've used them. I know several people who have, and they're extremely affordable, extremely efficient. So, yeah, I think that a lot of people might be clamoring towards you. How do we get hold of you and learn about that?
I do have a Facebook page, Wild Health,
Okay.
and then I have got a phone number on the labels if you want to get hold of me direct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put those. I'll put all those links in at the bottom of this if people are interested and need to contact you.
Okay, great.
So, anything else that you want to add before we just wind this up? We've been going for a while now.
I don't think so. I think it's nice to have people like you in Zim spreading the word and doing all the investigating, and I think it's time. I think we've got critical mass, and
yeah,
I think it's time to move forward.
And I also think that it's one of the gifts that we have from this old coronavirus lockdown. You know, in a lot of ways, it has been a gift for people to think differently, hear differently.
Exactly.
So anyway, let's see. Maybe it's the right time. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, John, thank you very much for joining us. I so much appreciate your time. I know that you're hectically busy. Don't you want to tell people what you've been crazy busy doing?
Well, the last few weeks is been trying to get a hand sanitizer product up and running, getting the manufacturing done, which I think we've done. There's still a few teething problems, but I think we've essentially got a good product, and yeah, hopefully be rolling out.
Is it also a natural product? Mainly.
Well, it's based on the WHO recommendation, so it's as natural as you can go to be as effective as it needs to be.
Okay.
But we have used ethanol alcohol as opposed to any of the isopropyls and all that. So it's as natural as we can get it. And this was, we will hopefully, we're looking at different formulations with some natural products. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve that we're researching at the moment. That's, I think it'll be a very nice product.
Great.
It will evolve into a very nice product.
Great.
But we've got to work at to start with.
We'd be able to get that maybe in supermarkets, you know, but for now,
yes,
if we wanted to get it, we could just contact you.
Yeah, I'm sure I can make a plan on availability.
Okay.
Lovely.
John, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. Have a lovely rest of your day.
You too, Tania. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.